Okay, I think we're ready to start. Uh-oh. That's going to cause an interesting an interesting sound. So I'm trying something new here. This time I'm running music right into the switcher from my laptop. So hopefully we'll have better sound quality this time around. Hello. And because of that, I'm monitoring on my phone today. So this is a little bit of an experiment, but we'll see how it goes. The task today is that I'm going to take the comic which I have been working on this whole week, and we're going to export it into Adobe Illustrator so we can finish up the lettering and pretty much everything. So let's see, where we left off yesterday, I just finished the last couple of panels, Steve and Emily at the desk with the manager from the new assisted living place that my mother ended up in, by some strange series of coincidences, and I won't get into the entire story there. I don't want to give away too much. And then we duplicated that artwork into the final panel and made a silhouette of it. And from there, I only had one more panel to ink in, and I did that this afternoon, or this morning. So that's where things are right now. Couple of little mistakes that I made. When I merged all of the layers here for Mom's room in panel 5, I forgot to turn the opacity for the bed back all the way up. So now we have a panel that has merged artwork, and you can see right through this ghostly bed, and you can see the bed frame details behind it. And so what we're going to do there, see, I made a note in my notes layer, which I call non-printing. Kind of a vestige from my days in print. This non-printing layer is where I keep little notes to myself about final details that need to be wrapped up when I get into Illustrator. It's usually where I put, the number of the strip itself and other notes. So I basically just put a note here that says oops, so I can address this once we get into Illustrator. So without further ado, let's start doing that. So getting stuff out of Adobe Draw and onto the computer is a little bit tricky. Adobe has made it to where you have to use their Creative Cloud to transfer everything over the cloud through Adobe Creative Cloud. So basically you're locked into their subscription if you want to get anything out of here to continue editing. There is another workaround, which is that you can save things into a Creative Cloud and then, well, I guess that's still using Cloud as an intermediary. But if you try to download stuff directly from Creative Cloud in a browser, you'll get a PDF. And the PDF has all of these layers merged, which is not desirable, right? We've got all of these layers here, and we want to keep them separate. And so the best way to do this, which is unfortunately a little unstable sometimes, and I tested it before starting the stream today just to make sure that it's going to work, is you click here on the upload or share icon. You click on Adobe Desktop Apps, and then send to Illustrator CC. And then with any luck, what that will do is that will open here automatically on the laptop. So let me switch to that input. It takes a minute usually, especially if the artwork is really complicated or if there's a lot of line work or raster files in there. It takes a little bit, but usually you'll get a notification on the iPad saying that it was successful, and that just happened. So now we are in Adobe Illustrator, and here you can see the file is open. One thing to note on the right hand side here is that all of my layers are comprehensively named. if you leave any of the layers in Adobe Draw with their default name, which basically just says sketch or draw, they will all be, anything that's the same name will be merged at this point instantly when you get in here. And that's also not desirable, especially if you want to keep things separate. Generally, any layers that I have set to transparent, they'll be reverted to 100% opaque. And so that is why I put the percentage here next to each layer, written in the layer name. Hang on a second. It looks like my stream has ended. Is that fake news? I'm not seeing any cache issues here. I think I'm still up. I'm definitely getting some glitchy behavior here on my phone, which doesn't mean anything necessarily. Let's see, am I still live? I believe so. Yeah, okay. Well, it's just my phone acting up. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And you know what? Actually, give me 1 second here. I'm going to log out on my iPad and then log back in as myself. That way I can answer any chat if it comes up. We had so many glitches yesterday. It's just want to make sure this is working. And we're back. Okay. Where was I? So we're in Illustrator now. And we're going to be moving things over into the new into the Sunday template. Let's see, if I go into my project folder, I have a resources folder in which I usually keep this Sunday strip template. And that contains all of my panels. It contains colors, gradients, some pre-made text boxes, word bubbles rather, dialogue bits, and they're all sized appropriately so that my word bubbles and everything can be consistent. I've also got some pre-laid out strip number stuff down here and a URL. And usually what would happen is you would just go in here and highlight all of these layers, everything on there, and then you would click on Paste Remember Layers, make sure that's checked. That way it doesn't all come in as one layer, and then paste everything in. And let's see here, what didn't work? Copy. Paste. There we go. And you can see now that all of the layers here are intact with the same names. And they plop in more or less exactly where I want them in this template. So where's the image layer that I was using as a backdrop? Yeah, see, this is how it would look if it went right into the template. But I kind of had a little kludgy approach on this one, a different workflow. So let's go into my Chapter 11 folder, and this is where I have strip 155. This is where I started it. You may remember, or may not, that I had pre-laid out everything and resized my text boxes or panels and laid out all the narration and the word bubbles because I had so much text I wanted to make sure that I had room for everything before sketching. So here everything is, and I'm going to go ahead and lock my existing layers, and let's go ahead and do a paste again. So I'm going to do Command-Shift-V. That should keep everything pretty much aligned. And oh, you know what? Before doing that, let's go back here. We don't need this image layer, so I'm going to get rid of that. And we might as well get rid of the non-printing layer too. So I've locked those layers and made them invisible. Let me go ahead and highlight. And when I do this, I can usually see little discrepancies like this dot that ended up outside of the frame. By hitting Control A and highlighting everything, you can see all of your little dirty secrets revealed. So you can do it now or you can do it later, but cleaning some of that stuff up is usually a good idea. Oh, and also my sketch layer, this doesn't have to come along. So let's go ahead and make that invisible too. So I think this is clean and ready to go. So Control A or Command A, copy, and then let's do Command-Shift-V to paste. And everything is more or less where I want it. Now, I'm going to take my non-printing layer, which in the final version contains just, you know, my strip number and URL, the title, my dialogue, my word bubbles, my narration, my panels, labels. I'm not using any of those right now, but sometimes I have footnotes, and so I have a label box set up for that, which has a little transparency to it. And I try to keep my footnotes and my narration consistent in terms of color and sizing. Once you set that expectation, you want people to remember that visual language. So I'm going to take those layers, because those generally are top layers, right? I'm going to highlight all of those and drag them up to the top. So now we're getting close to an end result here. Now there's just some alignment to sort out. What I can do from here is, let's see, oh yeah, building one and building one copy. Yeah, let me move those up here. I tend to like to keep my stuff in order here, so from top to bottom, you know, all my layers and their bits and bobs there in the right order. Now I've left notes for myself here in my layer naming. So Kitchen 2 is going to be 65% opaque. And like I've mentioned before, I do that in order to separate it from the characters a bit. So here it is 100%, and then here it is at 65. And the grays become a little bit richer. You get some of that color showing through. Sync number 3. Sync for panel 3, we're going to make that 65 also. And then here is the problem layer where I made that mistake. So I'm going to hold Command and then click on the lock here, and that will lock every layer except for this one. And now, let me see. It might be a little tricky to grab everything here, but if I do it just like that, that's most of it. I want to move this, let's see, actually, it might be easier than I'm making it here. Let's see, if I highlight the entire layer at once, it's at 100%. Oh, see, okay, so this is what I did wrong. What I normally want to do is, you don't want to, you know, you might want the entire layer to be a certain transparency, like this one here, right? let's use the sink as an example. By clicking on this dot, that allows me to adjust transparency for the entire layer at once. What I did wrong is I had, with the bed there, I'd selected the objects themselves and changed that transparency. So now you see how everything on this layer is transparent. You can see the different parts of the layer through each other, which is not what we want. So let me undo and go back to our bed layer here. Looks like the chair is still at 100 because that was one of the last things I drew. So what I'm going to do instead is just highlight everything. It looks like everything here is at 66. I'm going to make it 100% opaque. And yeah, that fixed it. Now I can take everything on this layer at once by clicking on that dot. And then go make that 65%. Yeah, and then that's what we're looking for. There are a couple of things here that are wrong. My duffel bag layer, let's see, I have some sheet wrinkles and creases left over there. But I want the duffel bag to be 100% solid because she's touching it. It might be a little weird if it was transparent at all. So I'm just going to take these couple of lines and I'm going to move them down to the room layer. And you know, this curve is behind the duffel now. It's not ideal. Let's see, can I what a very strange thing that's happening here. I'm just going to rotate and manipulate this shape a little bit. Whoops. That's close enough. I think that'll do. Now, okay, we have the problem of some of these layers are just not aligned. And this is because when I brought my reference photo into Adobe Draw, I didn't have it. Looks like it was off center vertically. So we need to move some of our artwork now. You know, you can see the hovering problem here. Nobody has legs and everybody's floating a little bit outside of, a little bit inside the frame. And it looks like that is not affecting the building layer. So if I just unhighlight everything but the building, let's see, people 2, kitchen sink, people, duffel room. Here we go. And let me drag this stuff down. That's kind of where we want it. You know, a lot of my artwork, as long as it's hidden behind these lines, the lines of the comic panel, that's fine. That is the intended result. How are we looking up here? So that one's protruding a little bit. It might just be a matter of scooching it up. Scooch. Chair needs to be scooched. Scooch the sink. This is definitely the more mechanical part of my overall process, but I find a lot of comfort in this step because I know I'm at the finish line or near the finish line. And like I mentioned before, it's really great working in vector because now these shapes are all, you know, individual shapes still, and I can manipulate them, group them and ungroup them. Or in this case, you know, I'd planned on probably cropping her arm right here, but I think I'm just going to move these two characters over a smidge, keep them in frame. Now we have this problem here, though. Because I hadn't planned on having her completely in the frame, her arm, the stroke on the left side of her arm is a little thick. But what I can do is just grab these points and scooch them over a little bit. Same with the white. Like I'd mentioned before, I really wish that all of these lines would come in as a stroke. Like, what's a good example? If I grab my brush, or let's do the pencil, make a line. If I add some stroke weight to it and add this taper, you know, then I can make it thicker and thinner at any point. And it doesn't become solid until you go to Object, Path, and outline the stroke. And then it becomes a filled shape, like what you just saw me manipulating. Unfortunately, you don't have that flexibility, so everything comes in from draw as filled shapes. And I can understand why. It's not as simple as just having a robotic tapered line like we just saw there. You know, a lot of this has to do with my pen pressure and angle and everything as I was drawing it, so it's a bit more organic, but it's still better than nothing. So this is looking good. The only outlier is the bed. I didn't really get these lines right. So what I would do in this case is just grab these points here, and I'm using the white arrow here, which is the direct selection tool, so I can grab individual points, and I can just draw a lasso around them and then move them up into the black space. Oops. And as far as the bed goes, and this one could be tricky. Let's see, because there's a lot to move. Yeah, see, so that's going to pull up into the frame, and I don't necessarily want that. So, in this case, what I would do is highlight everything on this layer. Well, maybe not the people. Let's just lock everything except for the room elements. Okay, so now only room 5, and that is what? Just this stuff. I'm going to group everything. I'm going to hit Option or Command G to group. And then I just want to crop the bottom there so we don't see those ruffles. So let me go to Panels, and I want to take my existing comic panel, which is this one, right? Let's copy it, Control C or Command C, and then let's go to Room and paste. Now if I hit Command V to paste, it says I'm attempting to paste or drag into one or more layers that are locked or hidden. That's because I still have Paste Select Layers selected. So it's trying to paste it back into the panels layer, which I just locked. So let me go up here to this little hamburger button and uncheck Paste Remember Layers. And now if I hit Command V, it will paste into the room layer like I want. But it's not quite where I want it. So if you want to paste it right back in the same spot, it's Command Shift V. Boop. Now, holding Shift, I have the panel selected already. I'm going to click one more time here to select my room, which I've grouped. And then I can go to Object, Clipping Mask, and make a clipping mask. And so now I've got this object that is cropped to that rectangle, yeah? And if I needed to go into there and edit it some more, whoops, I just have to double click on it and you can see all that geometry is still in there. I just now have a nice invisible cropped kind of box for everything. Now as far as spacing goes, I feel like this word bubble is too close to Mom's head. It's a little big. I could scooch people over a little bit, but I don't think I want to do that. There's some funny stuff happening here on this bed frame too. I can see like a little dip right here. And that probably won't show up that way when I export it as a JPEG or as a PNG or whatnot. However, I can at least take a peek and see what's causing it. So there's some of the lines here just are, the computer's just estimating that there might not be at the same horizontal level. So what I can do at least is just get rid of those points. Let me see. If I press the minus button, there we go. So now I've got my pen tool with a little minus sign next to it, and I can just delete these points. Now let's see if I zoom out. Yeah, I'm not seeing that glitch anymore. Possibly overkill, but I get a little bit OCD with this stuff. Okay, so let's now manipulate the word bubbles. So with the white direct selection tool, oh, and I should note that my word bubbles are cropped on the edges the same way I did the room layer. So this is another one of those clipping masks. And if I double clicked on it, you can see I have access to the entire shape of the word bubbles here. What I'm going to do is just grab that point there and bring it up. Oops. And it's a little close to my text here, so if I hit Shift C, that's a shortcut for this tool, which is the anchor point tool. I can then grab that point and fine-tune that curve. So that's looking better, except it's still awfully close to her head. It's not necessarily a problem. Sometimes, let's do this. So I'm gonna grab this set of word bubbles, which I have grouped. Matter of fact, let me just grab all of them. And I'm going to grab these little mask objects that I dropped here. I did that because you can see sometimes there's a little thin line right there at the edge of where the word bubble gets clipped. And that's because it's on top of this black panel outline. And I'm worried that that would show up later in print or on when I export it as a JPEG or something. So yeah, you can see them both here. So generally what I do is I just put some white boxes over them and cover them up. Let me just delete them for now, because we're going to have to redo those. If I move my whole layer over, we're going to lean hard in the other direction here. Instead of moving it farther from her, I'm going to overlap her head a little bit. So what am I looking for? I need my dialogue unlocked. Let me select all this text. I'm going to move everything over. And let me just get rid of the clipping mask too. Object, clipping mask, release. You know, and this is feeling a little bit better to me already, because this group of word bubbles, oh, there's another mask. The group of word bubbles wasn't centered before as a group, and that visually kind of bothered me. So if I do that, that feels better. Now let's go to panels again. I'll select that panel, go to my word bubbles layer, Command Shift V to paste in place, and then Shift and click to select the word bubbles too, and then make another clipping mask. I didn't select this guy at the same time, so let me just cut it, and then I'll double click on my clipping mask group here, Command Shift V again to put it back where it was, and then hit this arrow here to back out. So basically I went into that clipping mask group and dropped this word bubble back inside it to join its friends. So now we're good, except for the word bubbles are sitting on top of Mom's head. So what I'm going to do now is, this is what, room 5? And there's people 5. I'm going to create another layer. Let's see. Another layer right here underneath people 5. And we're going to call this word bubbles 5. And now I'm going to take this entire word bubbles layer and move it down under... Oh, wait. My mistake. We don't want the whole layer, just this one object. There's a couple ways I could do this. I could cut it, move down to word bubbles 5, and then Command-Shift-V to paste. Or you could just select it and then grab this red dot here and drag it down to word bubbles 5, and that will bring it to that layer. But the end result, this is what we're going for, is the Mom is now overlapping that bubble. However, now we've done this thing where we've moved it behind the panels layer, which kind of defeats the purpose of the clipping mask. And yeah, this is a lot of work. I suppose, you know, I could leave it this way, but I've found over the course of this comic that creating these open spaces where word bubbles overlap the borders makes it feel less busy. It really creates more of an impression like the energy is flowing through the strip. It's able to breathe a little bit. So yeah, that's something that I've become fond of doing here. So what I should do is just make another layer underneath word bubbles 5 and call this panel 5. And then I'll take that panel object and then move it down to panel 5. So essentially, you know, we've got all of our panels on one layer, and then all of our word bubbles in a layer above that, except for 5 is a specific case because of these special needs, right? So panel 5 is its own thing, and then word bubbles 5 is on top of that. So let's lock everything. Let me go back into word bubbles 5 to add those masks again. If I click here, it fills it with the default white fill and a black stroke. Now I'll click on the stroke and then click on none underneath it to get rid of it. So now we're dealing with just a simple white box. I like to be very exacting with that. I don't mind going a little over because, you know, like I said, when it prints, things don't have to be that sharp. That's never going to reproduce that sharp with ink. So it's okay if it goes outside a little bit, but not a lot. And let's see. If I hold Option and I hover over that, you can see I get the double arrows. That means I'm going to be copying when I drag. So let me drag this over here. I've just made another one. Let's cover that. Then hold Option and drag again. Oh wait, that's right, I don't need another one now because I've moved all of the bubbles inboard from the edge. Better. So last, this is pretty much there. I just need to add some tails. Oh, and now that I look at it, that doorknob, like already from this level of zoom, that doorknob doesn't look thick enough. This is something that happens. Apparently, to zoom in Illustrator, you can, you know, click on the zoom tool, or you can do a keyboard command, which is holding the spacebar and command at the same time. But the thing is, if you do it in the wrong order, you hit the command spacebar, it opens up this search in the operating system, or Option command will pop up an entire Finder window. This happens to me so often in my working process. Usually when I'm done, I'll find out I've got like 20 Finder windows open, and I've never sorted out the body memory that it takes to stop doing what I'm doing. Okay. Well, you know, the more I'm looking at it, I don't know if that doorknob is really a concern. You know, there's a little bit of aliasing that happens in this program. Like right now, even the stroke on these people looks a little thick. And I know it's not going to be that way when I export it as a PNG. In fact, we can test that right now. Let me go to File and Export. So I'll export as a PNG. It's already selected, and I'm going to use artboards because I've set up this artboard to be the right size. If I didn't select artboard, then it would bring in everything out here into the PNG, and it would probably crop it in right to the edge of the art. But I want just the white space of the page, so PNG, use artboards, export, and background color we want to use white, otherwise the white parts would be transparent. And I do 600 pixels per inch when I do this so that it's nice and enormous. And the way I have my file set up right now, it is at, what is it? 612 pixels wide by 792 high, which means virtually nothing, you know, when you're in vector, because I can zoom in almost infinitely and it's still sharp. It just matters on export. So once it's exported, let's take a peek. Whoops. Revolving doors, color. Here's the new, no, that's an old, that's my test layer. Here it is. In fact, yes, today at 4:02 p.m., so that just happened. So yeah, if I open that, you can see the difference in the thickness. And those, the doorknob that I was so worried about, how do you zoom in this preview thing? Oh, just like that. Yeah, the doorknob I was worried about is not a concern. But yeah, you can see there's a huge difference in the way the lines look once it's finally exported. So let me close that. Now we know we're going to leave that doorknob alone. Yeah, so the last thing to do here is to add these word bubble tails. So let's go to the word bubble layer. Actually, I'm just going to unlock both of the layers that have to do with word bubbles. Now what I have here, let me just hold Option as I drag it, that way I'm copying it. You'll notice that this is a stroke also. So I can bend this any way I want. And all it is a single line. Generally around 5 or 6 points is the size I use. And I set it to be a hard taper like this, a monodirectional taper. Yeah. So that allows me to just drop some in like that. Okay, so I don't know. There's like an art to the word bubbles, and I'm not. I'm going off my gut with this. I've never been like properly walked through the rules around this kind of stuff. But basically, like when I see this, it just feels, I don't know, somewhat aggressive. Something really sharp, you know, like I wouldn't want my word bubble to look like that. I guess what I could do, you know, I could always just bring the entire word bubble down a bit, you know, and then make it smaller, and that feels somewhat better. But I don't know, I kind of like the elevation let me just reverse it and do it this way. Maybe it just needs a little bit more curvature to it to not feel so knife-ish. We don't want stabby word bubbles. Oh no. Grab it. Maybe I'm not close enough to grab it. Okay, that's weird. Come on. Why can I not grab? Boo. Well, okay. A backup plan here. I can use the anchor point tool and just click on it and do it over again. It doesn't even need to be that long. Boy, it's super weird that I can't grab. There we go. That feels kind of hook-like. Let's just leave it like that for now. Hold Option again. Okay, for this one, let's see. Mom is standing in front of the sink. We're off to the left. Now, presumably, she's moved over more to the left to talk to us. So she's off of the panel to the left side. So what I'm going to do is take this word bubble tail and just pull it right off the side of the panel like that. And let me just show you how to finish these now. So I'm not, I guess normally I would just do all of these first and then come through and finish them, but for the sake of demonstration, let's just do a couple of them. So right here, I would go Object, Path, Outline Stroke. So now it's a filled shape. And then using the eyedropper tool, I match the color, the fill color, and the outline of the word bubble itself. And then with the direct selection tool, I will select, oops, not the text, just the word bubble. Well, you know what? It's inside one of these clipping masks again, so let me just double click on it to get inside the clipping mask group. Okay, now I see the whole bubble, and let's paste our tail, select both, and then using the Pathfinder here, I'm going to merge those shapes, and so now they're all one shape. And I can go back up a few layers, and that's the end result, right? So for this, this is something I like to do when characters are speaking off camera or outside the frame. Let's that's about right. And I dragged it way out here so that it doesn't get too skinny. You know, like I don't want to insinuate that the character's right there, you know, next to the edge of the sink. She's off frame a little bit. So if I do the same trick, Option, Path, which one was it? Outline Stroke, Eyedropper, so sample the color, click on both, merge. Now I just have to trim this, and I would do that the same way I did with the clipping masks up here. So let me grab my panel, lock it, go back to word bubbles, Command-Shift Paste to paste it in place, select both, make our clipping mask, and then I've got that little imperfection there, that blinky skinny line, and let's draw a little white box to cover it up. I'm going to angle the edges there, that way it's not cutting off the rest of our artwork. So now it feels like that dialogue is coming from off camera somewhere. Do I want to move this at all? Like maybe show more of the sink? I think I do. Let's reveal some more of that artwork. I could even experiment with flipping it over. So let's reflect horizontally. Ooh, this is not bad. Where's our mask? Let's object transform reflect horizontally again. Just align that a little better. I like it. I like it. I think before, when it was facing the other way, it wasn't bad, but I don't know. It again, there's like no rules to this, but my gut tells me that it feels better this way because we are taller than a sink, and so the line should be moving upward instead of downward. Looks like I have a little imperfection here I can knock out too. So if I go to sync 3, what happened there? Some artifact from coloring. Let me just move this to cover that hole. And then this line got a little janky, so let me move it in too. And I'm happy with that. So let's move on and do some more tails. Lock, lock, lock. Word bubble. I'm going to copy this and paste it into Word Bubble 5. Because remember, this is now a different layer. So the bubble doesn't have to go all the way down. I've seen some interesting comics in the past where like word bubbles would go like right into the character's mouth. I'm not sure why. I mean, maybe it's just a stylistic choice, but it's super specific, and I don't think we have to be that close. It's pretty clear who's talking. Now there's two ways we could do this, right? Like I could have the word bubble here coming from Mom, so it's like, hurry up, I can't stand it. Here, take this stuff home, bring me my jade necklace, etc. Or have it come from the last, and I'm not sure which makes the most sense, but I tend to... A couple little rules I've set up over time is I like to have the tail of the word bubble on the last thing that's said, and then also when people are talking, whoever spoke last, that word bubble is going to overlap the previous one. If they are overlapped at all, the newer thing that's said is on top, so it's like constantly stacking, right? Again, just sort of a visual language thing. So because this one is so short, I can probably turn down the width of it a bit so that the fat end isn't terribly fat. And in fact, now that I look at it, I mean, what is the point of having this one so high? Let me highlight this and that and this. Oops. That's good. I can get rid of this mask now too. I don't know, it's a little close to the edge. You know what's really interesting when you're doing this kind of stuff? I keep talking about rules that I've set up, and it's the beautiful thing about drawing, is that you make the rules. You know, you could say, yeah, there's these like stylistic things I have to obey to fit in a certain genre, but you know, that's just stuff that you've imposed on yourself, right? You can totally go off script and do your own style. And when you have a blank canvas, you know, you're creating all the rules for yourself. So what's really interesting is that like you are the only judge of what's right or wrong. And in that way, I think that drawing is like super great for kids, because it teaches you the confidence to say to yourself, like, I am the best judge of what is right. I know when I'm done. I create my own rules and I decide what flies and what doesn't. So yeah, I don't know. Two things I think kids really benefit from: drawing and Legos. We're talking about some serious life skills that are brought to you in these pastimes. Okay, so both of these guys, I'm going to go object, path, outline, stroke. I'm going to click on this, click on that. Oops, hang on a second. There we go. Click, click. Oh yeah. Eyedropper. Pathfinder. Click, eyedropper. Because this one's in the clipping path, let's just go into it, into that group. Paste. Select both. Merge. Oh, but I did forget that now we're on top of the panel here, so we see these cut off legs. Not ideal. People 5 has to be on top of word bubble 5 because of Mom's head, but panel 5 has to be beneath word bubble 5 because of those masks that I made. Right? If I move panel 5 above it, then we have this problem. So I've kind of created a little sticky wicket for myself here, but here's the patch. This is what I do in this situation, is I will take this panel, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it, Command Shift paste in place on People 5 layer. So yeah, it's cutting off these, it's ruining my mask here at the top, the clipping mask part. And all I'm going to do is basically just make another clipping mask like this. And then select both of these objects and make another clipping mask. So it's not covering the top, but it is covering the legs, and you'll see what that looks like. It's just, all I've done is I've masked off this one rectangle, and I've made it into a half masked, partially masked rectangle. Okay. So let's move on. It's going to be easier from here on out. Let's get another tail. Okay, now here I've made an interesting error. Well, not an error, but I've created a thing, a situation. Hurry up and go. That's Mom saying that, not me. And, okay, we'll be right back, is me. So I could, you know, just leave them like this, but then we have this problem. When we don't want to cross the streams. Never cross the streams. All of humanity could end. So, what to do? Well, it's a little matter of sleight of hand, right? Let's just move this out of the way for a moment. Hurry up and go. As long as it's higher up than the other one, it should read correctly. But now we're covering people again. I could do that thing at the top where I use the clipping mask to trim the word bubble. And like I said, overlap, the last thing that said sits on top. that could work. What if I do this? Let's make this group a little bit wider. There we go. There's again, there's necessarily no rules, right? But like, just because this is lower than that one, if it was too far over here, it still might read from left to right, which is not what we want. So there's kind of a cutoff point where it needs to be low enough and vertically or horizontally aligned close enough where it feels like it should be reading top to bottom instead of left to right. I don't know what that, there's got to be an interesting rule or trick to figuring that out, like a slope, you know? I don't know what that is, but maybe there's like a 45-degree rule, like if your bubbles are closer to a 35 or something, then maybe that it won't read right. Kind of like the 180 rule in filmmaking with turning the camera around. I don't know. Shooting from the hip. But if I put all the text on one line, that makes it a lot easier. Makes it a lot easier. Now, definitely feels like I should be reading from top to bottom, and I have room for my characters. So, looks like we got to do another clipping mask. So panels, let me click on that. Go back to word bubbles, Command Shift, clipping mask make. And now, when my characters are shouting, I like to use this extra object, which is the same exact circle shape, but it's what is it? Invisible fill, a stroke of 6 points, and it's 20% opaque. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut that, double click to go into my group, Command Shift V to paste, but it's on top, right? So let me move it to the back. It's been so long since I've used menu commands to do this. I don't know what the command is, but if I just hold down Command Shift and then the left bracket, it moves it to the back. So that's good. Let's do another little mask shape to cover up the imperfection. Boop, 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 boop. And now this one just needs to be moved to the top. Cut. Command Shift paste. Now let's see how these tails work. So she's shouting, "Hurry up and go!" And so in this instance, I feel like having a sharp, knifey kind of word bubble tail makes more sense. Stabby word bubble. Let's see. All right. Boy, I'm having trouble selecting things today. What is up with that? Yeah, it's almost like the tail becomes an exclamation point if it's really sharp and pointy like that, huh? But I don't know. It's a little much. I like a little curvature, so let me just do that. And then OK, we'll be right back. Whoa. Whoa, come on. Something is in retrograde right now because I can't select anything to save my life. I'm okay with this, but I want to move the little sweat bead. What is this, People 6? Yep. Let's move this little one. Just to give things a little bit of room to breathe. That's good. So again, let's highlight both, object, path, outline, stroke. Sample the colors. Double click to move into the group, paste, group, merge rather. I'm going to hit escape to leave the group. This one I don't have a clipping mask, so it's easier. Just select them both and merge them, and that's it. And that's it. Let's grab another tail. Copy. Paste. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I have always been a big fan of the Wacom brand tablets. And recently I got forced out of using my old one that I've used for like 9 years straight because Windows 10 decided I no longer deserved to own it. And so I had to buy another one, which was the Wacom Intuos Pro. And it was kind of a bummer. It has this like needlessly large wheel of buttons on one side, and every time I would like, it meant that if it sat next to the computer, you couldn't like have it too close to the edge of your computer. It had to be like that far away because it had to make room for these buttons. So you have this really wide arm stance where I'd be using my computer and then I'd feel like I was doing this. And I put up with that for a long time. And then it used like a Wi-Fi and little antenna, so there was a little USB chip that plugged in if you didn't want to have it plugged in. And that meant you were taking up a whole USB port just to use this tablet. And then when I got this MacBook, after I left my last job and went freelance, I decided I needed a Mac that I could run both Windows and iOS, or not iOS, whatever the heck. The Apple operating system and the Windows operating system. I needed something to handle both so that I could handle client requests. And then it wouldn't recognize the stupid Wacom Intuos Pro Wi-Fi antenna. So once again, I got forced out of a piece of equipment. So my latest and greatest purchase is this. This is the Intuos Medium Bluetooth. Because it's Bluetooth, it does not take up any USB ports, only when I need to charge it. It's so compact, so tiny. It's like 6 by 9 is the active area here. Look how it nestles right up in here. I know it's dark, so it's hard to see, but yeah, it's lovely. It's just lovely. I'm a big fan. I have found that that piece of gear and this laptop. Oh, and one other thing is I have a second monitor that's a simple USB-C monitor, and it's 1080p. It acts as a dual monitor setup with just one cable. It doesn't need a power cable, and just those 3 things right there are the ultimate portable design studio. Throw an iPad into the mix, and then you have a cartooning studio too. Geeking out. I like to talk about tools. Boop boop. Ba-doo. I'm convinced, though, that the reason I can't grab these handles today is because the monitor resolution, I had to change it to take up the entire 1080p screen real estate in Twitch. Pain in the butt, though. Let me use that, what's it called again? The anchor point tool. Just do that. That's good. It's option, click and drag. That's actually decent right now, but I don't want my tails to be exactly the same on every panel. So let me make it a slightly different size and angle. Oh dear, I've made a mistake. So it's Emily that's supposed to be saying, whoa, this is more affordable than those RCFE places. And me saying, yeah, we can definitely make this work. But I forgot to give her a talking mouth. A little talky mouth. That's okay, because, you know, I could just redraw another one and bring it in, but that would be an extra step. So what I can do instead, let's see, people 8. I'm going to unlock this layer. What if I just take this talking mouth and replace hers? That was quick and dirty. Quick, dirty, easy. What is that triangle of expectations? The Venn diagram of expectations for client work. You can have it fast, you can have it cheap, or you can have it good, but you can't have all. You can have 2 of those things, but never all 3. I don't know what that has to do with what I'm doing now. I just felt like saying it. Okay, and the last one. Again, I'm reversed. Rats. Okay, let's see. Yes, of course, is Steve. And all this is coming from the manager, the community manager. How's this? In a real pinch, I could just make my font size smaller. I try really hard not to do that though. I want to have a consistent type size across all strips. Because eventually, you know, when this thing is printed, we want to have the type to be around the same size on every page. There's only like some situations where I'd be okay making smaller type, and that would be like if a character's whispering, packaging or something. Every now and then the narration has gotten so out of hand that I had to do it, but I really try not to. Okay, let's see. Let's change our mask to cover this. Beautiful. And yeah, that'll work. So I think the alternative here is just to make this word bubble tighter. There's a limit, you know, to that. I wouldn't want to go like this tight. Yeah, in a pinch, again, that would probably be acceptable, but that'll do. So let's put a tail here. And then another one here. Whoops. And again, this one's so short, maybe reduce the width a little bit. Okay, so another trick, you could because there's only one thing in this entire document that has these properties. You know, a line with this particular line profile, and that's these tails. So if I click on one, I can go to select same stroke weight? No, same appearance. Okay, so it's selected all 6 of these. Oh, 5. Let me, because I changed the width of that one, it wasn't selected. And it looks like there's one outlier, and that's my template one here. So let me unselect that. So now just these 6 are selected. And if I go to Object Path, Outline Stroke, now they're filled shapes. Sample the colors. Let's go into this clipping mask and merge it. Let's merge these 2. Merge these 2. Merge these 2. Oh man, I just got hungry again. Why am I hungry again? I've eaten 2 decent sized meals today already. Boop. My body's playing tricks on me. Boop. Now, okay,